Hey everybody, this is Elliot, and I'm over here with Waverly of Empyrean Arts. I understand your business partner Heather Poole will not be joining us.
Not today.
All right, so why not start off and introduce yourself? Who are you?
I'm Waverly Jones. I am half of Empyrean Arts in Asheville, North Carolina. We are a pole and aerial art studio, but we also offer a plethora of other disciplines like handstands and chair dance and floor dance and flexibility, contortion, all kinds of floor-based movement classes we offer.
Oh man, that's super exciting. I am as flexible as a dry twig, and that runs in my family. So I've spent a lot of time researching contortion to figure out exactly what kind of molecular changes happen because chemistry is everywhere. So
Sure.
that's a very wide portfolio. How did you get into this? Very few people
Well,
wake up and say, "I'm going to start a studio."
yeah, that's true. Sometimes I even wonder how it all happened because it has become so big. But so in May of this year will be 10 years that I started training aerial arts. I started doing aerial silks first before anything else, followed by aerial hoop. So I kind of that's how I got into pole. Is I started doing aerial arts first, and we didn't have any pole offerings anywhere near Asheville at the time. I think the closest space to train was my friend Jack Spencer's studio. She's in Greenville, South Carolina. She didn't even have a studio at the time. I would just go and do private lessons with her in her house, like 8 years ago, probably.
Mhm.
And then YouTube videos. I had a pole in my house, and I was becoming pretty upper level aerial pretty quickly. I picked it up kind of fast, and within 2 years was performing professionally for a troupe here in town.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so in that time, I started doing pole and like just fell in love. And my friends would come over and we would do pole jams and stuff like that. And they would always say, "Oh, you should open a pole studio." And I'm like, I don't even know where people start on pole. Like when I started doing pole, I was like inverting and doing Aishas and things because I was already strong from silks. So yeah, so eventually we started to kind of take that inquiry a little bit more seriously because I got more into pole and we needed a studio here. There was nothing that offered anything like that within an hour. So we actually teamed up with Dakota Fox. She owns a Radia Fitness in USA, the USA division. And we got certified to teach pole through her. So I learned how to be a beginning pole student through a pole teacher training program that she offers. So that was really hard, learning how to teach fireman spins and pirouettes and things like that. That didn't come naturally to me because I wouldn't consider myself a dancer. Well, maybe
Mhm.
now that I'm like that I've done pole for so long, but I never did dance growing up. So the strength moves always came easier to me, but learning that lower level stuff was hard. So we went through the program for about 2 years. And then we, in that time, opened Empyrean Arts and started off very small. And we had 4 poles, one room. Yeah, we started off very small and then eventually grew. We have 3 classrooms now, 9 poles between the 2 classrooms. So yeah, we've grown quite a bit.
And that's just on the pole dance side.
Yeah,
I
we have
know
a
a lot of
whole
people
aerial program as well.
with all the aerial arts. I know a lot of people have tried to branch off into it. In some ways, it exercises very similar muscles. I know many gymnasts are interested in both pole and silks specifically at the same time. And yeah, the hoop is absolutely. You would not be surprised to know that on the circuit, Ren Fair circuit, these are very, very popular. Just rigs are far and few between, and finding good instructors. You can find out lots of people who know things, but yeah, emphatic nod with closed eyes. Yeah, there's a lot of people who say that they are teachers, but it's very difficult to find very good teachers who have actually done it. Or and yeah. So what when you originally started your studio, like what kind of struggles did you have? You already had a couple people who wanted to join right away, but what happened between then and now with 3 classrooms? What kind of struggles did you have? How did people start finding out about you? How did you grow?
So we didn't have normal, or what I would say, what I find to be usual struggles that people have when they open studios, in that we had a huge demand here in Asheville because there wasn't anything offered like that.
Hmm.
So we already had a huge community of people that were waiting for us to open, that were like ready to give us their money. So we didn't have to, we never worried about finances, which was awesome. We put our own savings into it. We got a really small loan. We were very frugal and had a lot of help. So I would say my biggest struggle personally was like my mental health of opening my own business.
Oh,
And that kind of like leaked into other aspects, or reverse that actually. I feel like the other aspects leaked into like what was stressing me out. Like I started having debilitating panic attacks really bad because I was stressing about building and timelines, and it felt like this massive project that everybody knew that we were putting together, that we had this timeline that we had to present it to the whole town of Asheville, the whole state of North Carolina, the whole country. It felt like so huge. Um, and it was. And yeah, but I think it was just like learning curve, growing pains, you know. I'm a lot less stressed. I have a lot less panic attacks now. But I would say probably my mental health of trying to open my own business was the biggest struggle I felt that we had.
that makes sense. That's actually something that not a lot of people like to talk about when we talk about physical health. And if you're physically sick, it's obvious and it can affect you. But mental health can be just as utterly debilitating. With PolePedia, Destiny, my fiance, we started it together, and she does a lot of the content and post writing. And I constantly monitor her health, not because it's bad, but because she's the type who will just continue to grind and just it'll be stuck. She's like, okay, it's Friday evening and I don't have a post to have for tomorrow. And I'm just like, hey, just, give yourself some space, allow yourself to be a day late, even write a newsletter saying, hey guys, so this is what life has been, and be crazy. Like, empathize with everybody. You're a person, they're people too. I don't know what's happened with you, but I find that this sounds a bit silly to be on the soapbox, but people being vulnerable and saying, hey, I'm struggling with this, or I'm just tired, or I don't want to talk about pole, or I feel like burning my pole studio down to the ground so I don't have to deal with it for a short amount of time. Yeah. Uh,
Been there.
yeah, you've been there?
I've
I
been
think I'll clean the studio.
Yeah, I think I'm really lucky that I have a really great partner. I don't know how people do it without if you're going to be a top level athlete and a studio owner, those two things are really hard to do.
Mm.
There's like hardly any time to train yourself properly. So having somebody take half of that load, and being a really good friend of mine that I've been performing with for many years prior to us opening the studio. We've been friends for a long time before the studio opened. But having her, definitely, she's also 5 years older than me and has owned a business before. So she's got a little bit more experience than I do. And like, it's just way more chill of a human than I am in general. So that was really helpful. I don't know how people do it alone. I guess a lot of people have managers, but having somebody own the studio with me, I couldn't have done it without her, for
I
sure.
think it's funny to be able to look back because as you start to own a business, I never crossed my mind until I was 29. It's like, oh, I could own a business. And as I was going through it, I agree with you. I work very well with partners, somebody to bounce off, but they also have to have a very different energy than I do. I'm not one to go out and hammer pieces of wood together and hope that eventually it's a house. I'm more of an architect, but I'm not somebody who can draw up blueprints. So I will just get lost in the planning over and over and then stress out that nothing's getting done. And it can be like this without somebody to help break that cycle. It can be this own internal cyclical loop that a lot of people want to help with, but you're stressing out about not meeting metrics that you haven't even defined yourself.
Right.
You're just saying, I need to work on this. And then people say, well, how can I help? And you don't even know. So you have no answer for them. Hey, I'm here for you. I'm sure you've heard plenty of times
Yes.
and not had a really good answer.
Yeah. It's been a huge learning curve, but I think kind of having a notable following from my aerial life already, and having people be there to support us as soon as we opened, to kind of like cushion the landing of the space opening up.
Hmm.
And having Heather's expertise and just like super chill demeanor was everything in
Hmm.
helping those like studio opening woes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
My business partner, I have lots of ideas. I'm a creative by nature. And he is very business minded, so he slaps a lot of the ideas away, which is something that I need. He's like, no, the best way to accomplish nothing is to try to accomplish everything. So, what's the next thing we need to do? And he can just pop it right out of his head and be like, oh, well, this is how this idea would work. Here's the 18 steps. And I'm just trying to scribble and write things down as fast as I can, being like, yeah, all right. And step 17. And what do we do after the chickens light fire to this building?
And of course he has an answer, I'm sure.
Oh, immediately. We wanted to make an online training course. Another thing that Destiny heads, where she teaches people how to draw, and actually making the course he correctly identified was number 17 on that 18-point list. You have to find out if people are even interested first before you're going to sell it, which, as you said, is a step that you got to skip over a bit. People were already asking for it. You were already feeling kind of comfortable and safe when it came to finances.
Hmm.
A lot of people say, I want to open up a business, and it's a great idea, and they run forward with it without knowing if there's going to be that demand, without doing all that extra research.
That's kind of like yoga studios and breweries here in Asheville. I would be so stressed if I wanted to open up either of those because there's one on every corner. But
Yeah.
when you know what we were offering, people wanted it so badly that it was like there was such a demand for it. We never had to worry about were people going to give us their money? Were people going to come into the studio, or were people going to want to come hang out with us? Or like our instructors going to get paid? Is rent going to get made? So that was nice not to have to worry about that. I definitely feel a lot more chill when it comes to owning my business now than I did even 2 years ago. I just am a lot less like this about things all the time. I'm like, that email can wait until tomorrow or maybe even 2 days from now. Whereas before I would like answer all the emails all the time. So I just don't do that anymore. And
I
that's
think
cool.
in our correspondence that actually happened on both of our ends. I had a lot of emails and I was like, I can get back to these people tomorrow. And then I replied, and then you got back to me 2 days later. I was like, this is nice.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm trying to slow my roll a little bit. I think that was another one of the questions. How has it affected me as a pole dancer? So kind of leading into that question, I feel like it's allowed me to just slow down a lot and rest and pace myself instead of feeling like I have to rush and go full force with all my might into things. Like I'm able to just really take a step back and slow down a lot. Whereas before I would just like train myself or work myself into the ground. So this has been a nice, for us, change of pace. I know a lot of people are really freaking out right now. And we are too. We don't really pay ourselves hardly anything. So there's money
right.
in our bank account for the studio. So my studio is like way better off than either of us are. And that's comforting to me, like if I could live there if I absolutely had to. Um, so yeah, I think that just being able to slow down and kind of pace myself instead of feeling like I need to rush everything all the time has been really nice.
Yeah, and that you're right. Those were some of the next questions I was going to ask. Like, how did 3 weeks ago COVID really hit, and people started to really take notice of it? And what did that mean for your studio? And what is your studio doing?
So we closed 2 weeks ago today, or maybe it was yesterday. We closed kind of early. We were like, we need to like stop this immediately because there's so much misinformation and kind of we didn't really know what was going on, but we knew that we were going to be mandated to close soon, and that came within a week. So we went ahead and closed early and started canceling a ton of workshops, a ton of intensives, so many parties. It's party season right now, so many deposits had to be refunded. So that kind of sucked at first. But Heather and I kind of go back and forth between like things that we're stressing about, and she just wasn't stressing at that time. So that helped me like bring myself off the ledge. And then we just decided, we need to start offering online classes. So we started with just a couple to see how they would go. They went really well. Payments are still coming in. People are keeping their subscriptions. We have a special running right now that's 2 classes for $20. You can buy as many as you want. You have to use them in 30 days. But that has helped spike our attendance for our instructors a lot with the online instruction. So everything's going pretty good considering, like, we are just trying not to get too ahead of ourselves with fear and anxiety about what's going on, and just kind of take it a day at a time. But also still be prepared for another wave of this to happen in the fall, or how are people going to be able to afford to come back to classes? So we're just trying to be really frugal and creative, with what we're offering right now, and keep people interested.
And that's actually a very good point. A lot of people, when they open their own business, like you said, they start stressing out. You and Heather stress out about different things, which is great.
It is
If
great.
you both stress out about the same thing, it's a feedback loop. And
It's a dumpster fire.
oh yeah.
Not a good
That's
place
a
to
good one.
be. Yeah.
So yeah, it's an absolute dumpster fire of just panic and wild speculation. And I was lucky enough with my business partner, with how chill he is. He used to work at ExxonMobil, and he had huge teams underneath him. And he sometimes jokes about how he stepped out of his office and his direct reports were right there discussing amongst themselves how surprised they were that he actually directly answered an email. Because he's very, your mistakes are your mistakes. I showed you what needs to be done. Hey, so long as there isn't a dumpster fire going on, then where things are okay. And it's your mistake and you'll learn from it. If there was an issue, let's talk about it and work our way through. But not a lot of people have that kind of relaxed demeanor. Micromanagement is almost inherent in all of us and needs to be trained out. And for everybody watching, micromanagement is both being the helicopter mom of the office and saying it's faster if I do it myself. Doing everything yourself, what I like to say is there are lots of jobs that you can do, but there are very few jobs that only you can do. And you need to focus on the latter and find a way to just kind of relax on everything in the former.
That's super important.
Excuse
really
me?
important. That's super important. We are really good at delegating, and we have close to 30 staff members at the studio. 11 of those people are work trade people alone that do so many random things at the studio. Like, I don't even know how to work our steam mop because we have somebody that works it every single day. The studio gets deep cleaned for 2 hours every day. And then there's a wealth of other people that do things like take care of the plants or create flyers or, take the flyers around, go to the grocery store. Like, we don't do any of that stuff because we have a program that we designed that has 11 people that just run these like tasks that we just don't have time for.
Yeah.
So trying not to micromanage and instead allowing our studio to run as a community and allowing those 30 plus people that we have on staff all the time to help us with things because they genuinely want to. And we are really good at picking the people that we work with. So I genuinely love like everybody that's on staff at the studio. But that's so important not to micromanage and to delegate. I see so many studio owners just like run themselves into the ground because they don't get help with anything.
Right.
They refuse to or just feel like it would be done faster or better, like you said, if they did it themselves. So I think just like trusting the people that you work with and being wise about who you choose to work for you is like so important. And then delegating tasks to them,
And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that it's a community. I know another interview, and one of the things that she did was to try to create that community within the pole studio that she has, as management shifted from where it was over to her. And that is one of the most important steps. You don't need an us versus them. You don't need to be clinical. You need to be very inclusive and say, hey guys, we're all in this together. So I think, well, good on you for finding all these different tasks and handing it off to other people. What I always say is, hey, if you're stressing out about something, it's not that stuff isn't getting done. It's just that you're not very organized with your own time. And what this means is what I do. I take a list of everything I spent doing that day and said, okay, so what's something that I can check off? How can I make this a little easier? That's why, again, the business partner, sorry for keep on bringing him up, but he'd be dumped into a very stressful job at Exxon, and over the first 2 months, very stressed. 2 months after that, it's a job. He's working hard. 2 months after that, he'd come in late, have a very long lunch, and then leave very early because he basically eliminated his job, and everything would run by itself. And finding that way to extricate yourself, even if you're not willing to go through with it and say, hey, well, now I've got a pole studio and you're sitting at home on the couch eating a bag of chips, that is a possibility. And deciding, what do I need in order to be fulfilled? Because most of the time with pole dance studios, I know a lot of people, it's not necessarily about the money. It's about love of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people need to think about that. So since you're doing all these virtual classes, and you say that attendance has been doing very well?
Yeah, surprisingly. Like, I mean, not that we thought that it was going to tank, but I think just way more signups than we expected. And I think way more people kept their subscriptions, their like memberships with us rolling than we expected, you know.
And what are you doing, since you said you would do performances and you'd have to do a lot of training? How are you still training at home? Do you go to your studio and have your own space because you're one of the only ones with a key?
I have the whole studio to myself.
Oh man, life must be terrible.
It's amazing. I have never experienced it. So ever since we opened, we've always had a very busy schedule. Before all of this happened, we had upwards of 50 different things on the schedule a week between classes and open studios. And that's not including parties and privates and private instructor training time. So there was virtually no time for me to go into the studio and train. I spent all my time at Gold's Gym, which I also enjoy. I love like strengthening and training at the gym too. But as far as like doing my sports and my acrobatic art, I just had no time really to do it. So I can, my boyfriend's visiting me from Austin, Texas. He's been here like 2 weeks. And we've just been going in there like every day and like doing random cleaning things and like hanging pictures up and dusting things off. And maybe we'll train some and we'll do an ab video. Like it's been really great. Like I almost feel guilty saying that because I know so many people are stressed out so hard right now. And I hope that everybody pulls through. I have like a level of guilt that like I'm not freaking out and that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, like I don't want it to seem like I'm having like the best time ever, but I'm trying to make the most of it, I guess. And part of that is being like, okay, I have this studio that like we're not allowing anybody to go in out of fear of contamination. I'm the only one that can go in there. But it's been really nice to be able to go in and like do my own training and listen to music as loud as I want and just have the space to myself. I've never been able to really enjoy that. So that has been kind of a blessing in disguise.
Not a lot of people really take time to extricate themselves. I know my family really doesn't like it because at the end of the day, I do a lot of online marketing and then I turn off all my electronics, everything's on silent. And they're like, what if we need to get a hold of you? And I'm like,
that's Heather. She turns her like, you only reach her certain times of the day. Like, she's very firm boundaries when it comes to communication. And she's also a very good communicator. So I've learned a lot from her about like cutting off when it's time to cut off, since we have to do so much on the computer and the tablets and the phones. So yeah, just to piggyback on what you were saying, I can totally relate to that.
And I hope to be able to chat with Heather sometime. How did you two meet? I know I'm digressing quite a bit, but now I'm very curious.
Well, we met at the studio here in town that we used to train at together. She's from Raleigh and I'm from Wilmington, and we eventually like slowly found our way here in Asheville, which is kind of like the western part of the state of North Carolina. And I remember the first day that I saw her, I thought she was so cool. She had like cool tattoos and piercings, and then she came into the studio and she was like mega bendy. Like she was like crazy contortion flexible, and I am not so much flexible like that. So I admire that a lot in other artists, but I'm like really strong. Like I've been able to build muscle and strength really quickly. So that's been kind of like my strength with aerial and pole arts. Some people are super bendy and some people are really creative. And like my strength was that I could just be really strong. So I think that day we like fell in love because I was like, she was like, whoa, that girl's so strong. And I was like, oh my God, she's so bendy. And that was probably like 8 or 9 years ago. It was a while ago. But we just fell in love, and then we started performing together with the local troupe Asheville Aerial Arts. So we spent a lot of time together in rehearsals. We taught, similar classes. We would travel to teach. I started traveling and teaching workshops at that time that I've been doing pretty heavily since then. So that's also been a way that my studio has been able to develop, is like seeing how so many other people are running their studios, just to throw that in there. But yeah, we just became closer and closer over the years. We even lived together for a short period of time in 2012, I think it was. So yeah, we were like, we wanted to move. We started traveling a lot. We would go to like Body and Pole and do traincations there, and we would go to NECA in New England, or we would go to Canopy Studios in Athens. You know, we would go to all these studios and try to learn as much as we can. And we're like, we need to like move because we want to do this full time. And we have kind of like hit the plateau here in town with like what we're being offered. And then we were like, well, we really love Asheville though. So why don't we create a space here in Asheville where we can bring these amazing people here and they can come teach us here at our own space. And then we don't have to go to them, you know, they can come to us. And that's what we did. And that's what we've been doing. And we've had a lot of really amazing people come and teach us. And we have people that come back every year to come train us. And yeah, so it's going really good. We got a really good thing going on.
Oh man, yeah, that's awesome. I know I had a couple of questions, but I just kept on. You've had quite a journey, yeah, you and Heather together. And I'm glad that you pointed out that you can just become very strong. A lot of people don't understand that a lot of it can be genetics. I always thought of myself as a very skinny dude who was very dexterous, that the juggling part. With that until acrobatics, when I suddenly was the base, when I was doing partner acrobatics. And I found that to be rather easy. Even this year, I decided, hey, let's get strong again. And between Christmas to, well, about 3 weeks ago, I had gained 20 pounds of muscle. And I know a lot of people don't know how to do that or can't do that or say that they can't.
I feel you with what you said earlier about the flexibility struggles that you've had. Because certain parts of my body have responded well to flexibility training, but overall, like the long-term goals that I wanted, I just felt like my desire to be really strong was like higher than those things, especially when it came to my back. So yeah, I think definitely those sort of things kind of favor people genetically. And strength was definitely my strong suit, that I could become really strong really quickly and build big fat bulky muscle really quickly. Somebody like Heather has really long lean muscle. Like we could do the same activities, but I will look like, you know, bulky in comparison to her like long like runner's body, you know. Like it's interesting. Bodies are so interesting when it comes, you can really like start to learn a lot about how the body works when you start training people in this stuff.
It's true. I've done a lot of training before, and even with Destiny, we have very different strengths.
So interesting.
Yeah. So what can, you've already mentioned, but what do you think that the rest of the community can do to come together and support each other?
Well, I think helping cross promote is really helpful. Like support each other's studios by promoting online offerings. I also think commenting, liking, keeping those things rolling on, you know, on social media, keeping people's posts active is really helpful so people can see promotions right now, because there's so much with the virus going on that I find that a lot of what we're posting is only reaching a small amount of people. So I think like supporting each other with helping analytics on Facebook and IG is really helpful. I also think that just like trying to spread positivity right now is really important to keep people's spirits uplifted. Trying to post like happy news things, or just like uplifting posts of yourself with your cat or whatever, I think is just really kind of important right now for people's mental health.
That makes sense. I was interviewing a local artist, and she said that a lot of artists of all types, including physical, that they can, like, a like is more than just a like. It can give a big positivity boost. And from what I've noticed with the pole community at large, it both seems to be extremely active and at the same time is not very active. When it comes to engagement, you may have lots of engagement one day and then suddenly get no and wonder, what's happening? Is it me? Did I do something? Do they not like this post? What's going? And it's kind of the nature of the beast of this particular industry.
Definitely. I've noticed that a lot, kind of like looking at our analytics and being like, wow, this reached like 5,000 people this day. And like literally like what you just said. Then the next day, a similar post would barely reach anyone at all. So I think the studio instructors and students are pretty good about helping us share and like kind of talk about these things that we're doing. And obviously just like giving money to people is always helpful too. I didn't mention that, but like we love money. Like that's really what we need to survive. So like keeping subscriptions rolling, buying classes, buying our special, buying gift certificates for people. We've had people just like buy classes for students that don't even take classes at the studio just to like help students. So little things like that have been really helpful. in keeping the studio afloat and like keeping us low stress level as far as like, oh my God, what are we gonna do?
That makes sense. Do you have anything else that you want to add? I'm going to start winding this down.
Um, Not really. Just thank you for reaching out to us and giving us this platform to talk about the studio and the current state of the world and how it's affecting us. So thank you very
Oh,
much.
absolutely. I know it can be very difficult from going from a pole studio owner to suddenly not having that friend group, that family group, that environment. And I mean, like you have mentioned in this interview, it's very freeing, but it can also be stressful in its own way.
For sure.
Well, in that case, thank you very much, Waverly. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good day.